You know that specific type of exhaustion you feel at, say, 8 p.m. on a Tuesday?
Oh, I know it well.
You haven't run a marathon. You haven't, solved cold fusion. You haven't even really moved from your chair all day. But you've checked your email 45 times. You've had a Slack chat about lunch options. You've watched 3 videos of a guy restoring a rusty knife on YouTube, and you feel just drained.
It's a very specific flavor of burnout, isn't it?
It really is.
It's not physical exhaustion, it's cognitive static. It's the result of your brain just being pulled in 1,000 directions at once without ever actually, landing anywhere.
Exactly. It's the feeling of skimming across the surface of your own life at 100 miles an hour. You're busy. Your brain is firing on all cylinders. But if someone actually asked you, what did you build or accomplish today? You'd really struggle to answer.
You have to sort of fudge it.
You totally fudge it. And that feeling, that vague, low-grade anxiety of the modern condition, that is exactly why we are doing this deep dive today.
Right. And we are looking at a massive stack of research and articles and notes, primarily centered around the recent work of Cal Newport. But I want to be really clear right off the bat.
Go on.
We aren't just talking about how to answer emails faster or, how to optimize your to-do list. This is not that.
Right. This is not a productivity hack. This is an existential intervention.
It absolutely is. We're unpacking a concept called the deep life. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, great, another lecture on how I need to throw my phone in the ocean and go live in a cave, just stick with us.
Yeah, please do.
Because the research defines this in a way that is actually practical for people who have jobs and families and, bills to pay.
The definition that anchors all this material it's a simple equation, but it's deceptive. The deep life equals high thinking plus minimalist living.
And that's a pretty radical combination. Most people, they try to do one or the other. They'll either try to be these super intellectuals while their house is full of clutter and their schedule is an absolute mess, or they become minimalists who, paint their walls white but don't actually do anything with all that space they've created.
The magic is in the combination.
The magic is in the combination.
So our mission for this deep dive is to take that apart. We're going to look at the philosophy of the why, but then we're going to get, aggressively tactical. We're going to talk about the 4 pillars, the deep life stack, and we're going to give you specific rituals. I'm talking about things like the phone foyer method.
Oh, that's a good one.
And why you need a book that is actually too hard for you on your nightstand.
Moving from the why to the how is it's critical. Because the why is easy to agree with. We all want more meaning in our lives.
Of course.
But the how is where we get crushed by the weight of our own habits.
Okay, so let's start with that core philosophy. High thinking meets minimalist living. When I first read high thinking in the notes, I'll be honest, I pictured a guy in a tweed jacket, smoking a pipe, reading Aristotle in some big leather chair. That what we're aiming for here?
Not necessarily the tweed, no.
Right.
Though if that's your style, by all means, go for it.
Okay.
In this context, high thinking isn't about being a snob. It's about the capacity to focus. It's treating your brain like a muscle that, it needs resistance training rather than a sponge that just passively soaks up whatever spills on it.
So it's active versus passive.
Precisely. It involves deep work, which is that idea of focusing on cognitively demanding tasks without distraction. But it goes beyond your job.
How so?
Well, high thinking also applies to your values. It means actually wrestling with ethics, maybe understanding a little philosophy, and really thinking about what a good life looks like for you.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to scroll through Instagram than to sit there and ask, what are my ethics?
And that's the shallows. The shallows are safe. They're noisy, but they're safe. High thinking required you to step out of that noise. And that, right there, brings us to the second part of the equation. Minimalist living.
Right. So does this mean I have to sell my car, own only one spoon, and paint my walls white? Is that the deal?
That is the common misconception, yeah. We see minimalism as an aesthetic like an architectural style, but in the deep life framework, minimalism is really about functional excellence.
Functional excellence. I like that. It sounds less like deprivation and more like engineering.
It is engineering. It's engineering your life. It's stripping away the non-essential to make room for the deep. The sources use this fantastic analogy of the bouncer.
Bouncer mindset.
Yeah. Think of your time and your attention and your energy as this incredibly exclusive VIP club.
Yeah.
High thinking is the party happening inside. It's all the good stuff. Your family, your passions, your best work. But you need a bouncer at the door. And if an activity or an app, a social commitment, or even a physical object doesn't serve your core values, if it's not on the list, the bouncer does not let it in.
I love that visual. Because right now, I feel like my club has a broken back door, the bouncer's asleep, and random people are just wandering in off the street to eat the buffet.
And that chaos, that's what leads to what the sources call maintenance cost. And this is a crucial concept that I think most of us just completely ignore.
What do you mean by maintenance cost?
Every single thing you own, every app on your phone, every vague subscription you have, every, acquaintance you feel obligated to reply to, it all has a maintenance cost.
Like a tax.
It is a cognitive tax. It steals a tiny fraction of your energy. And those fractions, they add up to that exhaustion we talked about at the start. If you own too much stuff digitally or physically, you spend your life managing your inventory instead of living your life.
So the goal is cognitive minimalism.
Right. Fewer inputs so you can build stronger mental models.
Yeah.
You simply cannot think deeply if you are constantly managing the shallow. High thinking requires the space that minimalism provides. They feed each other.
Okay, so that's the philosophy. And I think most listeners are probably nodding along right now saying, yes, I want that. But you can't just wake up tomorrow and say, okay, I am now deep.
Yeah.
You need a structure. And the sources outline this framework called the buckets or the pillars.
This is where we really move from theory into practice. The research is very clear on this. Willpower is a depletable resource. It's a muscle that gets tired. If you try to just do better through sheer force of will, you will fail by Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday's optimistic for me.
So you need to organize your life into distinct categories so you can actually track them. The most common framework uses 4 buckets, and they all start with C.
The 4 C's. Let's run through them because the definitions here are a little different than what people might expect. The first one is craft.
Craft. So this is your professional work, your skills, your output. But the deep life spin on this is mastery over prestige.
That's a big distinction. Unpack that for me.
Okay, so the shallow life chases prestige. That's the job title, the corner office, the awards, the blue check mark on social media. It's all external validation.
Stuff that looks good to other people.
Exactly. The deep life chases mastery. It's about getting undeniably good at something valuable. It's focusing on the quality of the thing you produce, not the applause it generates.
So like a doctor who spends all their time trying to get on TV versus a doctor who spends all their time researching a cure.
That's a perfect example. Mastery is quieter, but it's infinitely more satisfying. Prestige is like a drug. Mastery is a nutrient.
I like that. Okay, second bucket, constitution.
This is your physical and mental health. But again, let's look at the nuance here. It's not just trying to lose 5 pounds or, getting beach ready. It's about rigorous maintenance of the machine. The sources talk about treating your body like a high-performance vehicle that supports the high thinking. If the vehicle breaks down, the thinking stops.
So this would include things like a strict sleep schedule, your diet. The notes mentioned a keystone fitness habit, like a daily 5-mile walk.
That 5-mile walk is a recurring theme in Newport's research. It's presented as non-negotiable. It's not something you do if you have time.
It's a bedrock habit.
It anchors the day, it provides a rhythm, and honestly, walking is one of the absolute best ways to think.
Third bucket, community.
This is where we see a huge conflict with modern life. I mean, a massive one. The deep life demands a shift from low-friction connection to high-friction connection.
And low friction being a text message, a like on a photo, or sending a meme.
Exactly. It's easy. It costs you nothing. You can do it while you're sitting on the toilet. But it gives you very little actual nourishment. It's like eating empty calories.
Right.
High friction is showing up. It's hosting a dinner where you actually cook for people. It's volunteering on a Saturday morning when you'd rather sleep in. It's having a deep conversation where you actually listen instead of just waiting for your turn to speak.
That phrase high friction is so interesting because usually we're told to remove friction from our lives. We want everything to be seamless. But you're saying the friction is where the value is.
The friction is what generates the heat of a real connection. You can text someone all day long and still feel lonely. But 1 hour of getting coffee where you had to drive there and park and sit face to face, that actually recharges you.
So the effort signals importance.
It tells the other person, you are worth this inconvenience. That's powerful.
That makes total sense. Okay, the fourth bucket, contemplation.
This is the soul bucket, and honestly, it's the one most people ignore because it's the most uncomfortable.
Why do you think it's uncomfortable?
Because it requires silence. Contemplation is wrestling with ethical systems, reading philosophy, finding meaning. It's asking, what is the point of all this? You can't answer that question while you're watching TikTok. It forces you to confront the big, scary voids in your own understanding of the world.
I noticed in the notes that some sources mentioned a fifth bucket, celebration.
Yes, some variations do include celebration. And it's important to note this because the deep life isn't supposed to be some joyless slog. We aren't Puritans here.
That's good to hear.
Celebration is about mindful enjoyment, savoring a good meal, appreciating art, truly being present for the good moments. It's the difference between, scarfing down a burger in your car and sitting down to a meal with friends where you actually taste every bite.
So we have craft, constitution, community, contemplation. Now, the sources talk about taking big swings within these buckets. What is a big swing?
A big swing is a high-impact action. It's the complete opposite of a minor tweak. A minor tweak is saying, I'll try to drink a bit more water today.
Yeah.
A big swing in the constitution bucket might be, I'm training for a marathon, or I am completely cutting out processed sugar for life. It's a move that fundamentally changes the landscape of that bucket.
So you're not just dusting the furniture, you're rearranging the entire room.
Precisely. It signals to your brain that things are different now. But, and here is the giant warning label that should be flashing bright red, the sources are very, very clear about a specific trap that high achievers fall into.
Which is?
Trying to fix all 4 buckets at the same time.
Yes, the classic New Year's resolution disaster.
That's it exactly. You wake up Monday morning, you decide you're going to overhaul your career, craft, run 5 miles a day, constitution, host weekly dinner parties, community, and read Plato every single night, contemplation.
And by Wednesday afternoon?
You're eating a donut and crying. It's too much change. The whole system collapses. You burn out, and then you retreat right back to the shallows because the shallows are easy.
So how do we avoid the crash? I mean, if we want this deep life, but we can't do it all at once, what's the strategy?
That brings us to the deep life stack. This is probably one of the most useful frameworks in the literature. It proposes a hierarchical way to build this life, layer by layer. You don't build the roof before you pour the foundation.
Okay, let's walk through these layers, because I think this is where people really get stuck. Layer 1 is discipline.
Or, as the sources call it, building the engine. This acknowledges something really profound. Before you can think deeply about complex philosophy or execute a major career pivot, you have to prove to yourself that you can control your own actions.
You have to trust yourself first.
Yes. If you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, you erode your self-trust. If you can't stop checking your phone, you certainly can't write a novel. So layer 1 is just about establishing keystone habits.
Give me an example of a keystone habit.
You pick one thing, just one, that you do daily regardless of your motivation. The example in the notes was, I will not look at my phone before 8 a.m.
That sounds simple, but it is actually really hard for most people.
It's incredibly hard. But it's binary. You either did it or you didn't. It's not really about the phone, though. It's about proving to yourself that you're in charge.
It's about agency.
It's about agency. It proves that you are the driver of the car, not just a passenger. And once you have that engine of discipline running, once you trust the driver, then you can move to layer 2.
Layer 2. Control and calm. This seems to be about removing the chaos from the system.
Right. You cannot live deeply if you're constantly reactive. If you are just responding to pings, putting out fires, and living in your inbox, you are in a state of chaos. You have no cognitive surplus left for depth. The primary tactic here is time block planning.
Now, I hear time block planning and I instantly recoil. I think robot. I think of a schedule so rigid that I can't breathe. I think, well, what if an emergency happens?
That's the #1 fear, but the reality is the opposite. Time blocking just means giving every hour a job. That job can be nap. That job can be play with kids. That job can be reactive time where you just answer emails. But it's intentional. You are deciding how the time is spent, not the outside world.
So it actually gives you autonomy rather than taking it away.
Exactly. It's active versus passive. If you don't give your time a job, believe me, someone else will. And this layer also includes the digital declutter. You have to prune your digital life to stop the visual noise. You're clearing the weeds so you can finally plant the garden.
Which leads to the garden itself. Layer 3. Values and code. This is defining the why.
This is the penthouse. Once you have the discipline to execute, which is layer 1, and the calm to think, which is layer 2, then you get to decide what you're actually about. The sources suggest writing a personal code.
Like a personal manifesto?
A short one. A rule book for yourself. The example given was something like, I do not complain about things I cannot change. I prioritize mastery over prestige. I show up for my friends.
It's almost like a constitution for yourself.
It is. But you can see why this has to be layer 3. If you wrote that code but didn't have the discipline from layer 1, it would just be a wish list.
Right.
It would be a fantasy you look at while you're scrolling through Twitter.
That's a really important point. We try to jump to the values before we have the discipline. We try to act like a stoic philosopher when we can't even stay off TikTok for 20 minutes.
Exactly. You have to earn the right to the deep life by building the infrastructure first.
Okay, so we've got the philosophy, the buckets, and the stack. Now, I want to get into the really specific rituals. The sources had some really interesting concrete things we can do. Let's start with rituals for high thinking.
The heavy hitter here is obviously the deep work block.
The classic.
The absolute necessity of 90 to 120 minutes of uninterrupted work. But here's the nuance the sources highlighted that I think is critical. The role of boredom.
Boredom. I thought we were trying to be productive, not bored.
You have to embrace boredom to train your focus. Here is how it works. If you pull out your phone the second you hit a lull at a red light in a checkout line, or during a difficult moment in your work, you are training your brain to crave a dopamine hit every time it encounters friction.
You're training yourself to be distractible.
Exactly. You become Pavlov's dog, and the notification bell is the dinner bell. You have to learn to sit with the boredom. That's the gym for your attention span. It's like when you're lifting a weight and it gets heavy, that's the point where the muscle grows.
Right.
If you drop the weight the second it gets heavy, you get no benefit.
So if I'm stuck on a hard problem at work and my immediate reflex is to tab over and check the news, I've just dropped the weight.
You've dropped the weight, and you've weakened your ability to lift it the next time. You have to learn to just sit there and stare at the wall until the solution comes.
That is convicting. Okay, another ritual that jumped out at me was the hard book rule. Tell us about this.
The rule is this. Always have a book on your nightstand that is arguably too difficult for you to read comfortably.
So not a beach read, not a murder mystery.
No, we're talking dense history, complex philosophy, challenging literature, biographies of obscure political figures. The idea is that most of our digital reading is just dopamine snacking.
Dopamine snacking, I like that.
It's designed to be frictionless. A hard book forces your brain to engage. It requires active decoding.
It's the difference between eating a bag of chips and chewing on a steak. One just kind of dissolves in your mouth, the other you actually have to work at.
And that work is what keeps the mind capable of deep thought. If you stop doing that heavy lifting, your mind atrophies. If all you read are tweets and listicles, your brain literally forgets how to process a paragraph that has 3 subordinate clauses.
Okay, then you have productive meditation. This sounded interesting because usually meditation is all about clearing your mind.
This is different. This is very active. You take a physically monotonous task like going for a walk, cleaning the house, swimming laps, and you focus your mind on a single professional or philosophical problem.
And I'm assuming no podcast playing in the background.
That is the critical part. Absolutely no audio input. Just you, the physical movement, and the problem. And when your mind wanders, and it will, you just gently bring it back to the problem. It's incredibly difficult at first.
I've tried this. It's exhausting. My brain immediately wants to think about dinner or some argument I had 3 years ago.
That's the resistance. That's the weight you have to lift. But if you can hold a complex thought structure in your head for 30 minutes while walking, you are building a superpower. It means you can leave your desk and still be working. It allows you to utilize all those in-between times for deep thought rather than distraction.
And the last one in this category is solitude deprivation. Which, that sounds like a punishment in a prison, but the sources say it's actually the problem we're all suffering from.
We are absolutely deprived of solitude. For most of human history, solitude was the default state. You were alone with your thoughts while walking to the market, or working in a field, or waiting for a train.
Sure.
Now, we have banished solitude. We fill every single gap with input.
I panic if I have to wait in line for 3 minutes without my phone. I feel like I'm wasting time.
That's the deprivation. The fix suggested is pretty radical. 20 minutes a day with 0 inputs. No music, no phone, no conversation. Just you and your brain. It allows the dust to settle so you can actually see what's going on in there.
It's a little scary what you might find when the dust finally settles.
It is, but that's where the insights are. You can't process your emotions or your life if you are constantly overriding your internal monologue with someone else's voice.
Okay, let's pivot to the rituals for minimalist living. We have to clear the clutter to make room for all this thinking. The first tip is something I think I'm going to implement tonight, the phone foyer method.
This is one of the most effective tactical tips in the literature because it relies on your physical environment, not on willpower. It's so simple. When you walk into your house, your phone stays in the entryway. It lives on a little table or a charging station by the door.
So it doesn't come to the couch. It doesn't come to the dinner table.
Yeah.
And it definitely doesn't go to the bedside.
No. If you need to check it, you can.
Yeah.
But you have to physically get up, walk to the foyer, and stand there to check it.
It creates physical friction.
Exactly. And let's be honest, you are not going to stand in your hallway for 45 minutes scrolling through memes. You're going to check the important message and then walk away.
It turns phone use from a mindless reflex into a conscious choice.
And it reclaims your home as a sanctuary. Your living room becomes a place for conversation or reading, not just another place to be connected to the internet. It stops that weird phenomenon of two people sitting on the same couch totally ignoring each other to look at their screens.
I love that. And then there's the big one, digital minimalism and the 30-day declutter. This feels like the nuclear option.
This is the reset button. If you feel like your technology use is totally out of control, the suggestion is to remove all optional technologies for 30 days.
Cold turkey. So no Instagram, no TikTok, no Netflix.
Cold turkey. And then, and this is the key, at the end of the 30 days, you don't just go back to normal. You have to re-verify every app. You only reintroduce them if they serve a specific, high-value purpose for you.
So it's basically an elimination diet for your tech life.
Right. You treat your digital consumption like food. You want to eliminate the ultra-processed content, the algorithmic feeds that are literally designed to addict you, and prioritize the whole foods like books, nature, and face-to-face conversation. You stop eating junk food for your brain.
And speaking of whole foods, the sources really emphasize analog practices. Why does it matter if I write in a notebook versus on an iPad?
In a world that's becoming totally digital, physical tools matter more than ever. Writing by hand engages your brain differently than typing. It slows you down. Reading a physical book gives you a spatial sense of where you are in the text. Spending time in nature counterbalances the flat, glowing screen. These aren't just nostalgic actions, they are cognitive anchors. They ground you in reality.
It's tactile. It reminds you that you exist in a physical world, not just a virtual one.
Exactly. We're biological creatures, not software. We need dirt and ink and paper.
So we've got the stack, we've got the rituals, but I have to play devil's advocate here. This feels like a lot. If I try to do the phone foyer method and read a hard book and walk 5 miles and quit Instagram all today, I'm going to fail. We need a strategy for the long haul.
You are absolutely right, and that is where the seasonal approach comes in. The sources suggest incremental overhauls.
Slow and steady.
Don't change everything overnight. The advice is to focus on one bucket per month.
Just one.
Just one. So let's say month 1 is Constitution. You focus entirely on establishing that daily walk and fixing your sleep. You just let the other buckets tread water. You don't worry about writing your novel yet. You just walk.
That takes so much pressure off.
Then, once that health habit is on autopilot, once it's just part of your identity, month 2 is craft, then you add the deep work block.
You're building the life brick by brick.
And it connects to this whole philosophy of slow productivity. We have this obsession in our culture with doing more faster. But the deep life argues for doing fewer things, working at a more natural pace, and obsessing over quality.
The old do less, do better.
It's a relief, isn't it? It gives you permission to stop spinning all those plates. It acknowledges that doing something truly great takes time, and that's okay. You don't have to be optimized every single second of the day.
It really is. And to keep on track with all this, the sources recommend weekly and seasonal reviews.
You need a feedback loop. Every week, you look at your plan. Every quarter or every season, you do a life design session. You look at your buckets, and you ask, have you drifted back into the shallows? Are you neglecting community?
Because the drift is inevitable, right?
It is. The entire world is engineered to pull you into the shallows. Yeah. The algorithms, the economy, the culture, it all wants you distracted and buying things. You have to actively fight to stay deep. It requires swimming upstream.
So let's try to summarize this entire deep dive. It feels like a loop, doesn't it?
It is. Think of it this way. Less input leads to more thinking. More thinking leads to clear values. Clear values lead to simple living. And simple living, at the end of the day, leads to quiet fulfillment.
That is beautiful. And it's so relevant right now.
It's more relevant than ever. We are in this truly unique moment in history where information is infinite, but wisdom is scarce. We are drowning in data, but we are starving for insight.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought. There was a question in the existential review part of the notes that really stuck with me.
It's a question everyone listening should probably ask themselves right now. Am I becoming wiser or merely more informed?
Wow, that hits hard. Being informed just means you know what happened 5 minutes ago on the internet. Being wise means you actually understand what it means.
And the deep life is the path to wisdom.
So here's our challenge to you, the listener. Don't try to change your whole life today. Don't try to fix all 4 buckets. Just pick one. Maybe it's Constitution. Go for that walk without your phone. Maybe it's craft block. Out 1 hour tomorrow for deep work. Just pick one and start building the stack.
The depth is there waiting for you. You just have to clear the space to find it.
Thanks for diving deep with us. We'll see you next time.